Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. This is Britt Gergen from Handshake. We're so excited that you've joined us for our webinar today. We're going to get started in just another minute or two. I want to give folks some time to get logged in if they're running a little late. But in the meantime, I want to make sure that audio and visual are working. So if you can hear the dulcet tones of my voice, and if you can see that gorgeous sea of cyan on the main title slide here, could you jump into the questions panel and give us a quick hello or an okay? Again, just want to make sure that you can hear my voice and that you can see the title slide. Here they come. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So like I said, we're going to jump on mute for just another minute or two to give people another minute to get logged in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. But I appreciate you all saying hello, and I hope you're having a great day so far. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started. So for those of you who are just joining us, my name is Britt Gergen, and welcome to today's webinar, Handshake Reviews and Peer-to-Peer Advising. This presentation was put together and given by the fabulous team at the University of Miami at one of Handshake's user meetups earlier this summer, and they were gracious enough to offer to represent it today. So we're going to be doing a deep dive on how their team uses peer learning tools in Handshake and also peer-to-peer advising in their office. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Today's presentation was meant to be co-led by Ali Rodriguez and Doug Neese from the University of Miami Topol Career Center office. Unfortunately, Ali is not feeling well today, so she isn't going to be able to join us. So Doug and I are going to be splitting her parts of the presentation. We do have her contact information at the end if you want to reach out to her, but I think we should all just take a quick 3 seconds to send her good thoughts, and we hope that she feels better later today. But with that said, Doug, do you want to jump in and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Douglas Neese. I'm the Assistant Director of Campus Outreach here at the University of Miami, and I'm very excited to be able to share a little bit of the experiences that we've been going through with this peer-to-peer model that we've recently started using. So I'm excited to go ahead and answer any questions and kind of present on what we've been doing so far.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. And we're so excited to have you be presenting today. On the topic of questions, I wanted to call out that you can use that questions panel in the GoToWebinar page to send us questions throughout the presentation. I will be moderating those to the best of my ability and during the actual presentation itself. And then we'll also have some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation as well. So as you think of things that you'd like to ask about, please feel free to send them over. If I'm able to answer them myself, I will do so, and otherwise we'll save them for Doug at the end. I'll also share that we are recording this webinar and we'll be sharing a recording of it with everybody who registered today. So you'll have that as a follow-up a little bit after the webinar concludes. Okay. Oh, and again, my name is Britt Gergen. I'm a product marketing manager here at Handshake. Excited to be with you all. So before we dive into Miami's presentation, I actually wanted to cover a couple of other topics related to peer learning on Handshake. So as the title of today's presentation indicated, the University of Miami's presentation does talk about reviews and how their team utilizes them and the value that they see in them. But there are two other peer learning tools on Handshake that I wanted to cover before we dive into reviews. So, and for some of you, this will be kind of a review of information that you already know, and for others, maybe you aren't as comfortable with these tools in Handshake, so I wanted to make sure that we covered them. So last year, we rolled out a feature called Q&A, and this feature allows students to get advice from their peers. They, as the name suggests, they can pose questions, and then other folks from the Handshake community can answer them. So what you can see here is a screenshot directly from Handshake, and this shows off a couple of answers that, or excuse me, questions that have been answered by the Handshake community. So we've got a question, how do I get a marketing internship at Google or a top PR firm? And then another question here, tips for figuring out what to do with a marketing or communications degree. So what's really great about Q&A is that it allows students from all different points in their education career to utilize Handshake and get advice from their peers. So not only is it a great place to go and ask about landing an internship or what to do with a degree, you could also ask for something like interview advice if you're a senior that's interviewing for full-time positions. Or you could use it to ask about what major you might want to select as a new first-year student. So there are a lot of different use cases here, and it really gives students the ability to tap into that network of their peers and get relevant answers. You can also see that our team has been doing a lot of work on the back end to tag these questions so that they're more easily searchable and more contextually relevant for students in a particular major. So as of right now, students can go in and access the list of existing questions and answers, and they can also ask their own questions or answer new ones as well. Another peer learning tool that we rolled out this year is peer messaging. So the idea with peer messaging is that you can go one step further from Q&A and actually have a one-on-one conversation with your peers about a career-related topic. So whether it's finding a messageable peer who has a profile that you're interested in, or finding someone who submitted a review or has answered a question and wanting to kind of follow up with them on their experience, peer messaging allows you to reach out and initiate that smaller private conversation with one of your peers. So what you can see on the screen here is students' messaging inbox, where they're able to go through and kind of see all of the conversations that they have ongoing with their peers and continue them as well. A couple of key notes about peer messaging and the peer learning features on Handshake more broadly. You are able to opt in or out of, students are able to opt in or out of using peer messaging and being visible and messageable by their peers. So at any given time, a student could choose to make themselves visible and messageable, and then they could also make themselves not messageable and invisible again. Additionally, with peer messaging, you also have the ability to accept or decline any incoming message. So if somebody reaches out to you and asks a question that you feel comfortable answering, you can accept it and continue that conversation. But you also have the option to decline and not engage at all. So students have full control over whether they want to engage in messaging or not. Also very important to all of our peer learning tools on Handshake, you have the ability to flag content if you feel that it does not adhere to Handshake's content guidelines. So we've set up these guidelines to ensure that any content that's published on Handshake remains safe and appropriate. And I should also mention that content that's submitted through Handshake goes through automated text analyzers that flag any inappropriate language before it's even posted. So in addition to each individual student being able to flag content if they feel uncomfortable with, if it does not meet our guidelines, we also have automated processes going on the back end to ensure that we're proactively flagging any inappropriate language as well. And the value here, again, with peer messaging and with all of these peer-to-peer tools, is to allow students to come in and take advantage of the Handshake network and really learn from experienced peers as they move through their education and move towards finding a career. If you have any questions on Q&A or peer messaging, please feel free to send them over in the questions panel. Again, these features are live for students, but they have the ability to make their profile visible or not visible in a way that also makes them messageable or not messageable on Handshake. So with that said, we're going to dive into Miami's presentation now. And since Ali is out, I'm going to be taking the first couple of sections. So I'll be talking about Handshake's mission. I'll be talking about reviews, the third peer learning feature that we wanted to cover today. I'll talk about the benefits of reviews through Miami's lens, and then we'll talk about how students can use the reviews resources. From there, I'm going to kick it over to Doug to talk about how the Miami team leverages peer-to-peer advising, and then also how your career center can benefit from a peer advisor model. And very exciting, we are going to be also giving you a quick tour of Miami's peer learning space. I'll let Doug talk more about that at the end of the presentation, but his fabulous colleague Aurora has been kind enough to offer to literally walk us through the office with her webcam on so that you all can get a sense of how they've laid out the space. And we'll be able to talk about basically how they use that space as well. So that should be really cool, super interactive, fun visual. And then we'll also save some time at the end after we've done the tour for Q&A. So if you have any other questions, as I mentioned, just feel free to continue submitting them and we will cover them at the end, or if I can answer them during the presentation, I'll do that as well. Awesome. So with that said, let's dive into the bulk of today's talk. So Ali really wanted to start off with a review of Handshake's mission, and that is to help every student find a great job and build the foundations of a meaningful career, no matter where they go to school, what they're majoring in, or who they know. And when we think about Handshake's peer learning features, the who they know is really the biggest part of the mission that we're looking to tackle here. We know that not every student comes to school with a really substantial network that they can tap into. They don't always have the resources built in that allow them to get career advice. And that is really what the mission of your offices are, and the mission of Handshake as a company is as well. So this is a place where we greatly overlap. And this is a place where peer learning tools can really make an impact. They give students access immediately to an enormous network of knowledgeable peers. And reviews is a way to immediately start utilizing that network of peers. So what is Handshake's reviews feature? Here's how Ali at Miami breaks it down. So the benefits to students of reviews are that they're able to explore careers and make decisions with more information. So essentially reviews allow them to see what jobs or internships their peers have had and what they thought about them. So as an incoming student, I can see what other careers might be available to me and make decisions based on the information that my peers have shared. Students can get advice specific to the companies and roles they're interested in. So reviews live on company pages in Handshake. So if you are, say, interested in working for the Walt Disney Company, you could head over to the Walt Disney Company company profile page and see all of the reviews that have been submitted by students who previously worked for Disney. And when you dig into the meat of the reviews themselves, students are able to gain insight into company culture, mentorship, and learning, which is often harder to gauge. So you're getting a lot of qualitative information from these reviews, including what the student liked, what they wished was different, and then any general advice they would give to somebody who's going to work that position in the future. So again, it's a really great way to tap into this knowledge and past experience of your peers. There are also some really great benefits to Career Center. So here's what Ali had to say about how their team utilizes the reviews features. So reviews allow the Miami team to get comprehensive data on internship and co-op outcomes, enhancing student lifecycle reporting. So reviews is a really great way to supplement any work that you all are doing to collect information on internships and full-time jobs that students are landing. And all reviews that are submitted by your students are accessible to your team, regardless of whether they are public on Handshake or not. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you log into Handshake, into your admin account, on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a tab called Reviews. You can click in there to see all reviews that have been submitted by your students. And again, as this bullet point calls out, it's a great way to learn and even report on internship and co-op outcomes that your students are essentially, they're giving you this data. So if you are reporting on that, this is a great supplementary feed of information for you. Ali also calls out that reviews help you build relationships with new employers that your students love. So you'll be able to read through reviews that students have submitted, and if there's a company that your team isn't currently working with, and the student indicates that they had a great experience, that review is a great jumping off point for you to reach out to that employer and build a stronger relationship, whether it's approving them to start posting positions on Handshake at your school, or just furthering an existing relationship by kind of connecting on the fabulous experience that your student had and looking to kind of deepen your connection with them there. The last piece that Ali calls out from a Benefit to Career Center perspective is that reviews enhance your career counseling efforts by allowing you to reference tangible student stories, stories of student experiences. So if your team has read up on the reviews that have been submitted by students at your school, that is a great success story that you can share with other students that come in for advising or counseling. So if you have a student that comes in and talks to you about wanting to work for the Walt Disney Company, or that has a background that would make them a good fit for positions there, you can reference reviews submitted for that company and either help connect them with that particular person on campus who had the role, or just talk to them about the advice that was shared by that particular student. So this is a great way to supplement and even strengthen the advice that you give to your students in an advising capacity. Awesome. And I see we have a couple of questions coming in. I will address those right after this next slide. The last thing I wanted to call out about Handshake reviews are the different statuses that are available for students submitting reviews. So there are 3 options. There's fully visible, semi-anonymous, and unpublished, or private, we could call that as well. So fully visible, these statuses are all options that students can select when they're submitting a review. So if they choose fully visible, that means that their review will be visible to everyone on Handshake, including their name, photo, school year, and major. This means it will also be visible to the company that they're submitting it on behalf of. Semi-anonymous is also visible to everybody on the Handshake network and to the employer, but it hides some key details about the student, including their full name and photo. We will still display the school year, and major externally as well, but that's a nice option that we actually added after our initial launch to give students a little bit more flexibility in how they share their information. And then unpublished or private indicates either that the review was marked as private by the student, so they only wanted to share the review with their career center, not with the employer and not with any other students on the Handshake network. Or it could also mean that the review is not connected to an employer on Handshake. So when if the student submitted a review on an employer that doesn't exist in Handshake, we don't have anywhere to really display it or make it searchable on the system, so it remains hidden. As I mentioned, your office will still be able to see it, and the student who submitted it will still be able to see it, but it won't show up for anyone else. So these are all options that a student can select when they are submitting the review, and then you'll also see these options to filter by when you're looking through reviews from your Handshake account. And then finally, here's an example review. So this was a review submitted by a student from the University of Miami about their work as an analyst at Citibank. And you can see what the student liked, what they wished was different, and what advice they would give as well. And because this is a public review, we can see the student's name, picture, school year, major, and school as well. So this is how it would show up for other students at the University of Miami, as well as students across the Handshake network. So we can see that this student calls out that working at Citi, it was a very friendly and team-oriented environment. And the student was able to learn a lot and make meaningful contributions, and everyone was approachable and willing to help and teach what they know. So that's really great. The student calls out that they wish the training was a little bit more thorough, and they give advice on basically being open to being proactive. So reach out to people, ask for their advice because they're willing to give it. So this is a really fabulous kind of snapshot of what it's like to work in an analyst position at Citi, and we can see how it would be really helpful to other students who are considering that type of role. All right, before I kick it over to Doug, I just wanted to address one or two questions. So can organizations see student reviews and who wrote them? The answer is yes. As I mentioned earlier, if a student makes the review public or semi-anonymous, the employer will be able to see and actually respond to that review as well. We have a lot of really fabulous examples of employers responding to students who reviewed them and either thanking the student for the review or sharing that they will be passing the feedback along. So it's been a really positive experience, and we know that employers are really psyched about being able to respond as well. And you know what, actually, I'm going to address some of these questions on individually. That way Doug can move on with his part of the presentation, and we'll make sure that we stay on time here. So I will go in and answer some more questions, but now I'm going to kick it over to Doug to talk about peer-to-peer advising.
All right, thank you, Britt. For those of you who might have gotten in after I introduced myself, my name is Douglas Neese. I'm the Assistant Director of Outreach here at the University of Miami at the Topple Career Center. And I am currently the supervisor of the peer advisors. I help with the implementation, also with the development, as well as the rest of the career education team. And we're currently going through our third semester of implementing this model. So I'm going to go into a little bit about why you should really take on peer-to-peer advising. Well, it's definitely, it focuses on creating immediate and comfortable advising sessions. So just to give a little backdrop of the situation that we found ourselves before we moved on to this model. So in order for students to get advice, career advice, a lot of times they would have to come into the center or call the center to set up an appointment, which a lot of times, due to the large volume of students that were looking for advising help, would cause a backup of 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks. Therefore, a lot of times, whenever the time came for the student to finally meet with an advisor, maybe their concerns had changed, or perhaps they no longer remembered it. Well, the point is that a lot of those sessions ended up being lost just due to the fact that there was such a long wait time. So we decided to move towards it, the peer-to-peer advising, just because it's more immediate engagement. It allows the students to address whatever it is that they're worried about right then and there, and facilitates both their interaction and us seeing as many students as we possibly can, enlarging our scope. So as the second bullet point says, there's no wait time. And a lot of times, a lot of our students share with us that visiting the Career Center can be an intimidating process, just maybe because of the stigma of careers, or the unknown of if they're going to finally get their dream job or dream internship. So it's a lot less intimidating for them. Another benefit that we also found by implementing this program was that once we fully trained our peer advisors, and they have all the tools they really need in their toolkit to address all of the resume critiques, cover letter critiques, basic level advising, interview advice. Whenever the student would get to the professional staff member, the questions would be of a higher level. Therefore, all their bases would be covered, and then the professional staff member could really concentrate on answering those questions to really get them that dream job or dream internship. And also another benefit that we found is that now, as professional staff members, we have a lot more free time to be on campus, really starting new initiatives and engaging with the campus overall, instead of really being tied to our offices just due to the fact that we had a large number of appointments and we needed to see students one-on-one. Therefore, we've kind of shifted our scope so that we can address a larger audience, or really reach as many students as possible. Yep. So if we can go on to the next slide. Continue. Okay. So just so everybody knows, basically the mindset or the recommendations that we we give to our peer advisors are these four key components. Basically, we always make sure to train them on appreciating the student, really understanding where the student is coming from, understanding that no two students are the same, and that we really need to appreciate their their past, their desires of where they want to go in the future, and really come from a place of non-judgment in order to be able to fully help them out as much as possible. So we instill all four of these key components in a 40+ hour training that we actually host a week before class starts. So after we've trained them on appreciating the student and really understanding maybe like the stigmas that career services may have amongst the students, we go on to talk about co-exploration. So we know that that peer advisors may not be experts in the career service fields, but we really encourage co-exploration and really encourage the peer advisors to try to find the answer along the student, just so that they can learn, but also so that they can use it in the future for future students that they're working with. The third one is small loops. So we know that a lot of times during advising sessions, the advisors can monopolize the conversation. A lot of times sharing more advice than actually listening to what the student actually is looking for. So we always encourage, and we have a lot of practice. We help the students practice, the peer advisors practice on sharing small amounts of information and constantly confirming that the student that they're working with is fully understanding the advice that they're giving them. So through this exercise of small loops, so we would share a little bit of information, confirm that they understand, and then move on to the next topic in order to make sure that everything that we've covered is really thoroughly understood by the student. And the very last key component that we instill in our students during our peer advisors during the training is own your takeaways. So because a lot of times the drop-in area can be very hectic, there can be a number of students that are going through, it's always important that whenever the peer advisor finishes up with the student, because we encourage the students a lot of times to stay as long as they would like within the Career Center, to work on any one of their professional documents. We always make sure that the peer advisor, before they leave, lets the student know what they should do next in order to be up to date or in order to continue in their career development. So we can move on to the next slide. All right, so the training topics. So I previously mentioned this 40+ hour training that we have for the peer advisors. So I feel like in the 3 semesters that we've unrolled this model, that the training is definitely a key component in having our peer advisors both feel confident and feel capable of sharing all this information with other students that are coming in. So first and foremost, we feel that expectations always have to be set at the beginning, have to be reinforced both through the training and throughout the year, and need to be reminded as much as possible. We understand that peer advisors, as active students on campus, they have a number of responsibilities, including classes, organizations, extracurricular activities. So by making sure that the expectations are clear from the beginning, we can always avoid any issues, or at least mitigate any issues that we might encounter later on. We also go through the career development theory and career mentoring. So we rely on the chaos theory of careers, and we really instill that in our students, just so they understand that maybe if a student has a certain goal, that they'll reach that goal eventually, but they should really be taking advantage of all the opportunities that present themselves, either through chance or just through luck. We definitely go over all the the transactional activities when it comes to career services, the resumes, the cover letters, the CVs, the personal statements, and everything that has to do with professional development for our students. So we make sure that both they practice on reviewing and critiquing other resumes, but also improve their own professional development so that they can be examples for the students that they're working with. And the last one is that we make sure that they're up to date with all the job and internship search services and resources that we currently have at the Career Center. So if there were any students that were looking for anything in particular, may it be in nursing or business or any career, that they would be fully acquainted with the resources that we have at the Career Center. So we can go on to the next slide. All right. So just to wrap up, before we do the tour of the drop-in area itself, these are the results that we had for our first 2 semesters. So in total we have 1,523 students used our drop-in services last semester, and we found that the times most used were from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So this data was actually collected through a exit survey that we developed with Qualtrics, and the exit survey was taken upon the student leaving the drop-in area, and it would be self-reported. So every student reported that they were either the services were either extremely helpful or very helpful, and that was 94.29% of students reported these results. If they would be likely to recommend it to a classmate, 95.15% recommended it to a classmate. And the services that they used most often were professional document critique, finding an internship, and the other category. We found out later through some analysis that a lot of times students didn't associate professional document critique with resumes, so they would place other. So we've actually, for this semester, shifted and changed our exit survey so that it reflects each document one by one, so we can see exactly how our services are being utilized and how we can really optimize it for the students. And in terms of like the student years that use our services the most, we actually found that freshmen were the ones who used it the most, followed by juniors, sophomores, and seniors. So these are the results that we have for our first year. We're currently, what we did for the second year is that we just reviewed the survey and really just optimized it so they can really reflect what we're trying to improve and what we're trying to see how our students are feeling using our peer-to-peer advising services. So now, in order for everyone to really visualize what our area looks like, I've asked my colleague Aurora to actually host a webcam through the areas. So she'll go ahead and turn on the webcam. So if you can all see right there, so that's our lovely lobby. So whenever a student comes in, this is what they'll see. So as they come in, they'll always walk to the front desk and they'll be greeted by our lovely front desk assistants, where they'll go ahead and enter. Well, they'll share what they need to find or what they're looking for, and then they'll enter their email through that iPad right there, and they'll be escorted over to the drop-in area. So as we go through the drop-in area, yeah, so she's walking over to the drop-in area. So as you see, this is the drop-in area. So we've actually designed it so it's a very open space, very, very dynamic, so that the students can really either be in this area right here and close the doors so that it's a little quieter, or actually leave it open where it can be a lot more engaging with a number of students. So there we see a number of our peer advisors. We have Austin and Claudia. Claudia is currently working with a student. So this is the area where the students would engage with our peer advisors. And then if we look to behind Claudia on the computers, we actually have our exit surveys already there to go. So as soon as a student finishes working with a peer advisor finishes working with another student, they'd be asked to go to the computer and fill out the survey, really just letting us know what their satisfaction levels are with our services. So in this area, students can really feel free to stay as long as they would like, work on any of the documents that they would like to work on, or they can just go ahead, come in for quick advice, maybe 15 minutes, and then come back whenever they're ready. So this is really a dynamic area for the students, and we're really trying to improve and just develop it out as much as possible. Yeah, so. All right. Yeah, so now back to you, Britt.
Awesome. That was so cool. First, like, super multimedia presentation I've ever done in my time here at Handshake. Thank you so much, Aurora, for walking us through, and Doug for narrating that. That was fabulous. So folks, we've got about 10-15 minutes now for questions. If you want to send those over in the questions panel, I'd be happy to pose them to Doug. While we're doing that, though, I also wanted to call out, Allie wanted to share her contact information. So if you wanted to follow up with her, she said she'd be happy to have people reach out via email or phone to talk more about their Miami's peer advising model. But with that said, I am going to take a look at the questions box, and we can start asking Doug some questions. Give me 1 second here so that I can, where did it go? Oh, here it is. Perfect. Okay, let's see. So Samantha, Doug asked, how has University of Miami increased the number of student reviews being submitted in Handshake? Which efforts have you found to be successful? Do you have anything to share on that front?
Yeah, so in terms of reviews, whenever we have any students coming in that are looking for internships or are looking for just jobs in general, professional experience, we always make sure to advise them and have them log into Handshake either through their own computer or the computers that you all can see in the video. Once they're logged into Handshake into their own account, we have a peer advisor, guide them through all the resources that we have there, the job opportunities, how to search for jobs. But we also make sure that they know that whenever they do finally get a job or an internship, or if they've already had one, we always encourage them to go ahead and put in a review and also view the reviews of their colleagues, of their classmates or the other students on Handshake. And that way we really encourage them to not only see what other students are saying, but also share what their experiences are.
Awesome, cool. Let's see what else we've got here. So Doug, do you have an idea of how long students tend to stay in the space? And do you ask the students to self-report that in the survey? Like how long they stayed with the peer advisors?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So we actually the first year we didn't have that option. About halfway through the first semester, we realized that would be a great question to put, but due to the fact that it was our first year, we decided to keep our exit survey the same just for consistency, so that we could kind of review it at the end of one full year. So for this year, we've actually added the question, and we have them self-report how long they've been in the drop-in area. So right now, looking at the results of the survey so far this year, the average time that a student stays is 25 minutes, and really the maximum so far has been 96 minutes. So it's an average of about a half an hour. But then again, it just really depends on the need of the student itself. So a lot of times we have students that, are just going ahead and starting their resumes. So they'll just come in, get some basic resume guidance, and then go off and do the resumes on their own and come back and then start engaging a little bit longer as they're advancing more through their internship search or their job search.
Awesome, that's super cool. Okay, so Katie asked, how have you promoted your peer-to-peer model to students on campus? So I'm guessing you kind of talked about promoting reviews to students, but
Mhm.
how do you promote like going and dropping in with the peer advisors?
So what we've done really is, first of all, before we even rolled out the peer advisor model, we met with a lot of our partners on campus, a lot of our partners that were really interested in our services, and just informed them of where we were moving towards, both the reasons and the benefits of why we would be moving towards this new model. We also developed a number of digital pamphlets or digital media that we put up on TVs around campus, letting students know that we have this drop-in service, that they really have no wait time in order to be seen, so that they can drop in anytime Monday through Friday, 8:30 through 5, and really be seen by an advisor right then and there. And we've also used our peer advisors to do outreach opportunities to engage with different organizations, groups on campus, and have them share what they're doing and how they can really help out with the students.
Cool. And just to confirm, Samantha Palmer had a question. Is peer-to-peer only done as drop-ins, or do you allow students to schedule an appointment from a peer?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So the way we have our drop-in designed is basically So the student would come in without an appointment needed at any point, and they would, log in through the front desk, go to meet with the peer advisor, and so then the peer advisor would help them make sure they have the resume in order, if they need any cover letters, that they've identified all the resources that we offer, and then if they have any career specific or very technical questions when it comes to their industry, we actually allow the peer advisor to go to walk the student back up to the front desk and make an appointment with that specific professional advisor, so that by the time that they reach the professional advisor, the full-time staff member, they would have, let's say, all their bases covered, and then they can really engage in that higher level conversation that they would really need in order to land that dream job or to be fully ready to interview or even start entering into their industry.
I love that. So it's kind of the peer advisors feed into the professional advisors.
Yeah, so yeah, we've basically trained them to be able to, help out with all these transactional services, give low-level advising, but then actually be able to make the call to see whether the student needs to see a professional staff member, or if they're doing okay on their own, and maybe later on they can make an appointment. Uh, but we do actually still make appointments for practice interviews, just because of due to their length. We always want the peer advisors to be in that area, very visible, ready to help students, so that we don't have students waiting. So for the practice interviews, we normally have professional staff members do those to free up the time of the peer advisors.
Cool. Awesome. One question we got ahead of time as people were registering was, what would you say the program outcomes or goals are for the peer advising program? So you talked about tracking, like the time spent with the peer advisors. What other types of metrics are you looking at to assess the success of the program?
So we definitely rely heavily on seeing what their satisfaction levels are with the peer advisors, and fortunately they've been very positive. But that's definitely one of the largest ones. We also like to track whether they would recommend it to another student, just to see if maybe, when they encounter another student who's maybe a little frustrated with their career search or their internship search, they would actually be able to recommend this service to them. Fortunately, that's also been very positive in our case. But we also allow a comment section where the student that just saw the peer advisor could actually place their comments. And fortunately, like I said before, they've been very positive to this point. But if there's ever a situation where they feel maybe the service was lacking, or if there's something we can improve in, that's an area where we've seen a lot of times that they give us that feedback. So we make sure to review that information biweekly, and then bring it to the peer advisor all staff meeting. So just another point, in order to make sure that our peer advisors are constantly up to date and are really just aware of everything that's going on in the Career Center in terms of any events or any change in policies or anything like that, we host bi-weekly staff meetings where we try to choose a time during the week where we can get most of the peer advisors together. And during that bi-weekly staff meeting, we'll actually a lot of times bring in partners on campus, maybe the counseling center, the academic enhancement center, or any one of these partners that we really feel can both enhance the knowledge of our peer advisors, but also enhance the service that they're offering to other students that are coming
Awesome. That's super smart.
in.
Um, okay, just a couple more questions that came in. You talked about peer advisors kind of walking the student over to, I believe it was the main desk, to get them set up with a professional advisor. Joel asked, is there a full-time professional advisor available should there be a need in the moment? Like, do you have a floating professional advisor in the peer space? Or is it, if the student needed to ask a professional peer advisor a question, they would go and schedule a regular appointment?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So the way we have it set up here at the Topical Career Center is that I'm the direct supervisor of all the peer advisors, but I also work with a graduate assistant who is there 25 hours a week. So the graduate assistant's job description is basically to supervise, make sure that the schedules are on point. If there's any issues, he'll take care of the immediate issues. So 25 hours a week, we have him in that area in case there are any questions as well. But I also make sure to be there as much as possible. And we also, what we're doing in order for our full-time staff members to really get acquainted with both the model and the peer advisors themselves, is that we have a rotation for the full-time staff members to spend 1 hour a week within the area, just to share any expertise that they might have, but also be able to answer any questions that they have, but also build those relationships with both the students and the peer advisors.
Cool. All right, one more. Are there any topics your peer advisors do not advise on? Things like career assessments, personal statements, anything that has to go to a professional advisor?
What we normally do is we try to train them on everything. If we see that there is an area where perhaps they're not as comfortable, or because I do host biweekly one-on-ones with each peer advisor, so I'll be meeting with them every other week, just to see if they've run into any issues with any students, or perhaps there's certain topics that they don't feel comfortable with. So if there's any issues like that, we'll always address them in the next staff meeting. And really try to train them up on all the topics in general. The only ones that we don't ask them to take are just those mock interviews in general. But a lot of times, there are higher level questions that students come with, and that's when the peer advisor will really determine that, all right, this student would benefit from meeting with a professional staff member. So they'll make sure that everything else is covered. They'll ask about resumes, and if they know about Handshake, that they know about all the resources on Handshake. And then after that engagement's finished and they've confirmed that everything is covered, then they would go ahead and make the appointment with the full-time staff member.
Awesome. All right, y'all, those were fabulous questions, and it looks like we are right up on time. So I think we'll wrap up today's session. But Doug and Aurora and Allie at home, thank you all so much for taking the time today. This is really fabulous. Doug, anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I wanted to go ahead and thank everybody for tuning in today. Please feel free to reach out to Allie, and through Allie, she'll be sure to connect you with me in case you have any questions about our model or how we implemented it, about the training or anything else like that. We're very excited about this model. It's really been changing around the way we work in this career center, and we really feel like it could possibly do really good in any career center. So if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. And thank
Yeah,
you very much.
if you haven't already checked out Miami's annual report that came out a couple of weeks ago, it talks all about this model, and it is fantastic. It was such a cool read. All right. Well, thanks everyone again for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.